Hello and welcome back to Vintage Disney here on Brian's Things That Are Cool. In 1958, after the success of Davy Crockett, Walt Disney was pressured by the network to produce more true-life adventure stories, namely within the Western genre. Walt hated repeating himself, but complied with a number of productions that you never would have guessed weren't his first choice in content. There was Swamp Fox, Texas John Slaughter, later Daniel Boone, and then there was Elfego Baca. Based on the real life of New Mexico gunfighter, sheriff, lawyer, and politician Elfego Baca. The series was novel at the time for representing one of the first Hispanic folk heroes. Ricardo Montalban was being considered for the part of Elfego, but when Italian-American actor Robert Loggia...
That's Robert Loggia. R as in Robert Loggia. O as in, oh my God, it's Robert Loggia.
Tested for the role, Walt took an instant liking to him and cast him in the part. In fact, not only did Robert Loggia keep his hat from the series, but Walt even gifted Loggia the Colt 45 used on the show. Once he secured the part, the New York actor then had to take a crash course in how to be a cowboy, including horseback riding, quick draw, and even boxing. Loggia even did most of his own stunts, prompting his stunt coordinator, who had worked with Douglas Fairbanks, to remark that he hadn't seen anything like it since Fairbanks. The series was filmed in a number of locations, including the Disney backlot, and even where the real Elfego Baca once kept peace in New Mexico. Many of the location shots were used so frequently in other Western productions at the time that Loggia said that one day he almost showed up on the wrong set. Perhaps not reaching the fever pitch of Davy Crockett, Elfego did pretty well in the ratings, as well as on the merchandising front, with comic books, records, and even a theatrical movie. Granted, it was just 2 episodes of the series tacked together under the new title of Elfego Baca Six-Gun Law. Robert Loggia gives an excellent portrayal of the real-life Hispanic hero in a style reminiscent of Fess Parker's Davy Crockett, with a touch of the swashbuckling fun found in Guy Williams' acting in Disney's Zorro, and was so well liked at the time he was even on hand when Walt opened the monorail at Disneyland on June 14, 1959. Elfego Baca is a series that hasn't achieved the legendary status of other such Disney productions from the period, such as Davy Crockett or Spin and Marty, but it's a great little Western series, and that's why we're looking at it today. The first episode, The 9 Lives of Elfego Baca, premiered on October 3, 1958. It was directed by longtime Disney director Norman Foster, who gave us Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, and a number of episodes of Zorro. Elfego comes to town and sees a drunken member of a local gang shooting his guns wildly in the air. Recognizing this as a danger to everyone in town, he tells the Justice of the Peace, played by the innkeeper from Disney's Zorro, character actor Nestor Pava, that he's going to stop the drunk and deputizes himself. It seems the local law enforcement fears this gang in particular and allows them to do whatever they want to avoid issues. This isn't how Elfego feels, and since he has just deputized himself, he arrests the drunk for disorderly conduct. After a quick trial finds the gang member guilty, resulting in a $5 fine, the gang, angered that anyone would dare to arrest one of their own, chase Elfego to an old run-down home and start opening fire on the home with him inside. With the help of a statue of St. Anne, patron saint of unmarried women, housewives, women in labor, grandmothers, childless people, equestrians, lace makers, miners, the poor, and seamstresses, Elfego is able to hold out against a barrage of 4,000 bullets for 33 hours, coming out without a scratch and an idea for his path forward, to fight injustice. Elfego is put on trial, with it being made clear that the prosecutor is on the side of the gang. Unfortunately for them, Elfego is found innocent and freed. Historically, the gang tried to stop the arrest, and Elfego fought back, killing the horse of John Slaughter's foreman, which fell on the man, killing him. The Justice of the Peace sent a rancher named Bert Hearn to arrest Elfego for murder, resulting in Hearn being shot dead. The door to the house with 400 bullets in it was entered as evidence, resulting in Elfego's acquittal. In the show, the whole experience inspires Elfego to study law, but before he can even relax after his adventure, there's a shootout at the Grand Central Hotel between the law and a bad man barricading himself in one of the rooms. Elfego is officially deputized and runs into the hotel, fighting the man down and turning him over to the law. Like with Disney's version of the life of Francis Marion and the Swamp Fox, There are a lot of exciting pieces that give an idea of what happened without being based solely on any particular event. The hotel scene is an example of this idea, giving lovers of westerns plenty of two-fisted action, while not exactly being a representation of historical fact. But it puts the plot in motion. Episode 2, 4 Down, 5 Lives to Go, which aired on October 17, 1958, and was directed by Norman Foster. Elfego begins his career in law enforcement by sending letters out to known criminals demanding that they turn themselves in or he'll come get them. Historically, when Elfego became sheriff of Socorro County, instead of sending his deputies out to arrest the criminals, he sent out letters saying,
"Dear sir, I have a warrant for your arrest. Please come in by the 15th and give yourself up. If you don't, I will know you intend to resist arrest, and I will feel justified in coming after you and shooting you on sight."
As amazing as it sounds, this was actually successful, and most of the criminals turned themselves in. After a band of rustlers turned themselves in, we're treated to a bit of historical fiction as an old prospector named Grubstake Charlie is stopped from shooting people on his land. And then Elfego is asked to apprehend a killer who calls himself the Shameless One. Elfego finds his man at a dance, in what just happens to be the tavern set from Disney's Zorro. The Shameless One gets away, and Elfego is determined to catch him, even if that means skirting international law, should the Shameless One cross over the border. No problem for Elfego. He just puts his badge on the inside of his vest and vows to arrest him when he comes back over. He catches up with the killer, apprehending him by throwing a rattlesnake at him, only to be chased on the way back to the border by the Federales, making it over and officially arresting the killer once he's legally allowed to do so. The Shameless One isn't in jail long before he escapes, taking the life of Deputy Marshal Ed Morgan in the process. The Deputy Marshal is played by Robert F. Simon, who Spider-Man fans may recognize as Peter Parker's boss, J. Jonah Jameson, in the short-lived 1978 Spider-Man TV series.
I suppose you're here to sell me some exclusive photos on Spider-Man in action.
Well, no, I saw that on television, too. I'm sorry about that, sir.
Elfego chases the Shameless One onto another set from Disney's Zorro, where he's badly injured by a bullet from the killer's six-shooter. Luckily, Elfego was able to get a shot in as well, taking the killer out. With the town saved, Elfego resigns to pursue his dream of becoming a lawyer. Historically, Elfego became a U.S. Marshal in 1888, serving just 2 years before leaving to study law. Episode 3, Elfego Baca, Gunman or Lawman, which aired on November 28, 1958, and was directed by the co-director of the sci-fi classic from 1951, The Thing from Another World, Christian Nyby. After a brief recap from the previous episode by Walt, we find Elfego now studying law at night, while still working as a lawman during the day. Elfego comes across 2 fellow lawmen roughing up a man in the alley. Not seeing this as how the law should behave, Elfego fights them off the man, only to be arrested himself for interfering with due process. The lawmen bring Elfego before the judge, who gives him the option of paying a fine or serving 7 days in jail. Elfego takes the 7 days and is led off to jail by 2 lawmen who are now apologetic, realizing this was the Elfego Baca. While in jail, his fellow prisoners tell him about an attempt to steal the Mirando Ranch and how they were arrested for defending the property. After Elfego is released, he heads to the ranch to speak with Don Esteban Miranda, but finds the place heavily guarded. Elfego charges through the men with his carriage and makes his way into the hacienda, where he's able to speak with Don Esteban Miranda, played by silent film star and original Ben-Hur Ramon Navarro, who not too long after this episode was the victim of a heinous murder. Don't look it up. Mistake. The hacienda, which is another reused set from Zorro, has belonged to the Miranda family for 300 years. But without paperwork to prove it, Don Esteban Miranda is in danger of losing everything. Elfego is aware that older records were archived in Santa Fe and plans to go get the orders needed to search for them. Before he is able to get the records, Elfego and his mentor J. Henry Newman are captured by the crooks. I would assume J. Henry Newman is a stand-in for Judge A. Freeman, the man who permitted the real Elfego to practice law and join his law firm in February of 1895. Though I've found no evidence of Freeman and Elfego being captured by ranch thieves. Now Elfego and Newman have to defeat these thieves and find a way to save the Miranda Ranch. As the good guys win in the end, Newman makes Elfego a junior partner in his law firm. and Elfego even gets the girl, Don Esteban Miranda's daughter, Lucida. Episode 4, Law and Order Incorporated, which aired on December 12, 1958 and was directed by Christian Nibi. Elfego shows up for his first day as a partner in a law firm and finds Don Esteban Miranda and his daughter Lucida there to congratulate him. But their visit isn't only for pleasure, as Don Esteban has received a letter informing him that the Southwestern Railroad is demanding clarification of the ownership of his land. Since this is a continuation of the story from the previous episode, there isn't much basis in historical fact. In real life, the law firm Elfego set up with his partner A.A. Freeman was short-lived, as Elfego was practicing law in El Paso by 1902, while Freeman was elected president of the New Mexico Bar in 1900. As established in the previous episode, the Mirandas won the last case on default and didn't have to prove ownership of the land at the time. Now, to save the ranch once more, they have to find the records in the Santa Fe archives. The problem is, they're missing. Elfego asks Don Esteban to try to remember what happened to the original documents, and Esteban remembers there had been a suitor for his daughter named Luis Vicente who had been interested in the land. Elfego travels to the last place that Luis was known to be. As he arrives, he's spotted by Ross Manti, one of the men who were guarding the Miranda Ranch in the last episode. Elfego is able to locate Luis, who has a rather shady-looking bill of sale for the ranch he obtained from the bank, thus claiming ownership, but he pulls a gun on Elfego, who is able to disarm him. But not before Ross Manti fires a round through the window, killing Luis. As Elfego is left alone with Luis, seemingly wanting the land, the sheriff arrests Elfego on suspicion of murder. Before the sheriff can take him to jail, though, Elfego breaks free and runs. The posse chases him all around town, with Elfego evading them every step of the way. Elfego is able to make it back to his office and his partner J. Henry Newman, where he shares his belief that the whole fraudulent land scheme is somehow connected to the town's banker and pillar of the community, Mr. Bixby. Once again, Elfego has to prove who's behind the scheme to steal Don Esteban's land and bring swift justice to the criminals. Episode 5, Elfego Baca, Attorney at Law, which aired on February 6, 1959 and was directed by Christian Nibi. This was one of 2 episodes edited together for the 1963 theatrical film Elfego Baca, Six Gun Law. Elfego is now a practicing lawyer, and as the episode opens, a bank robbery is in full swing. In the following shootout, Elfego takes out one of the robbers as the rest of the gang gets away. A witness is questioned who remembers that one of the men had an eye patch and a horse similar to that of a man named Fernando Bernal, who Elfego had paroled the previous year. Local deputy Joe Monroe and Elfego head to the Bernal ranch to arrest him, and having done nothing wrong, Bernal refuses. But Elfego convinces him to go with the lawman. Bernal had been out with his sheep and dog during the robbery, coming back to discover that his horse had been stolen and replaced with one featuring an unfamiliar brand. Bernal's daughter, played by Annette Funicello, saw the man who replaced the horse saying that he had a black hat with a silver band. This is enough to convince Elfego that Bernal is being framed and he'll take the case. When Elfego takes Annette and her sister to visit their father in jail, Annette recognizes the man in the cell next to him who had been arrested for public drunkenness the night before as the man who had switched the horses. When Annette and her sister are taken to live with J. Henry Newman while their father is in jail, this man is spotted in the window and loses his hat as Elfego chases him. When Elfego spots the suspect at the saloon, he confronts the man with the hat. But before any questions can be asked, Deputy Monroe arrests the man for public drunkenness, and as he takes him outside, shoots him, claiming self-defense. Deputy Monroe is played by frequent cowboy star James Drury, who also had a number of Disney roles under his belt, including Pollyanna and 10 Who Dared, and even starred alongside the King in Love Me Tender. With all the pieces starting to come together for Elfego, it's up to him to prove who the real leader of the bank robbery was and save an innocent man's life. In the end, with the plot against him thwarted, Fernando Bernal is reunited with his daughters, and Elfego has had his first successful case, even if he forgot to charge his client. Episode 6, The Griswold Murders, which aired on February 20th, 1959 and was directed by Christian Nibi. This was the second of 2 episodes edited together for the 1963 theatrical film Elfego Baca, Six Gun Law, with their connection being the family of Annette Funicello's character. We open on a party in Don Diego de la Vega's living room. Sorry, if I pointed out all the sets reused from Disney's Zorro and Elfego Baca, we'll be here all day. The Griswold brothers get into a fight over a beautiful woman and are kicked out by Elfego. The woman's husband, Cyril Cunningham, spots one of the brothers taking his wife outside just as shots are heard. The crowd rushes to the scene to find one of the Griswold brothers dead on the ground. Cyril is suspected, but he swears he didn't kill the brother. Elfego believes him and agrees to take the case. In the judge's chamber, Elfego and J. Henry Newman fight over the case just as gunshots are heard from outside. It's a lynch mob led by the Griswold's father, attempting to break Cyril out of jail and hang him. Elfego convinces the judge not to arrest them, but kick them out of Santa Fe for the duration of the trial, only to show their face if subpoenaed. While investigating, Elfego finds a connection to a rustler named Jack O'Neill, who he knows used to ride with Fernando Bernal, the former rustler turned rancher from the previous episode. After a brief appearance by his daughter, again played by Annette Funicello, Bernal tells Elfego where to find Jack O'Neill. Jack O'Neill had been arrested 5 years before, along with the Griswold brothers. Jack now runs a rustling business with someone else, both under fake names. It's up to Elfego to track down the other man, and in doing so, win this case and free Cyril Cunningham. Episode 7, Move Along Mustangers, which aired on November 13th, 1959, and came to us from director George Sherman, who had directed Fess Parker's other frontier show, Daniel Boone, in the 1960s. This has to be one of the best episodes of the series. While again it has little to do with historical facts and the story of the real Elfego Baca, it has nearly every old Western television series cliche you could want, and it makes for a lot of fun. A man named Eliza O'Brien comes to Elfego asking for help. His people want to settle in the area, but the local ranchers don't want them there. His people are called Mustangers, who rounded up wild horses on the open range and sold them, mostly for horse meat, during the westward expansion. Mustangers were seen as a threat by the ranchers who had already established themselves in the West and didn't take too kindly to the newcomers. The Rangers attempt to burn the Mustangers' camp, but are stopped by a Mustanger named Shadrach, played by Brian Keith from The Parent Trap. Shadrach's idea of justice differs greatly from Elfego's, but Elfego is able to calm any tensions and takes the case. When a son of one of the ranchers, Luke Sawyer, is captured, the sheriff, who stands with the ranchers, resigns rather than jail him, and Elfego has to become the law in town. Elfego serves the arrest warrant to Luke and takes him in. Luke isn't in custody long as the ranchers, led by James Coburn from the Magnificent Seven, break him out. This was actually one of James Coburn's first roles, and it was actually Robert Loggia that got him the part in this show. In all the confusion, Luke takes a shot at Shadrach and misses. Shadrach returns fire, hitting his target. Tensions grow as Luke's life hangs in the balance, while Elfego is determined to fight for what's right. Episode 8, Mustang Man, Mustang Maid, which aired on November 20th, 1959 and was directed by George Sherman. Wrapping up the Mustanger story arc, the second part opens with Shadrach and his fiancée getting kicked out of the general store by an anti-Mustanger store owner, played by DeForest Kelley.
I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer.
Elfego takes up the discrimination case and sees firsthand the troubles faced by the Mustangers. The cattleman caused a stampede through the Mustangers' crops, and later killed one of the Mustangers named Josh, played by Skip Farrell, who had been providing folk songs throughout the 2 episodes in this story arc. Though not as exciting as the previous story, it's still a worthy conclusion. With stampedes and plenty of gunfire, Elfego needs to capture the rancher responsible and bring peace to the area. Episode 9, Friendly Enemies at Law, which aired on March 18th, 1960 and came to us from director William Bodine, who also gave us Spin and Marty. Elfego is hired to take the case against Raoul Kettrick, a powerful cattle baron. Kettrick is accused of trafficking in stolen cattle, but insists he's innocent. When Elfego attempts to begin his investigation, a fight breaks out between Kettrick's men and Elfego, resulting in the men and Elfego being arrested. The men and Elfego are released with the help of Kettrick's lawyer, Martin Diddler, played by John Kerr, whose mannerisms and voice throughout the episode keep reminding me of James Dean in Giant. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not. As Elfego looks into the case, the list of suspects grows, including Kettrick's foreman, Wade Catter, played by the silver screen's second Batman, Robert Lowry. Elfego is shot and takes after the unknown assailant, who loses his hat in the process. Elfego suspects Martin Diddler, but those suspicions are put to rest by a boxing match, with Diddler defending his honor. As Elfego and Diddler put their differences behind them, it's up to Elfego to find the real culprit and solve the mystery of the stolen cattle. Episode 10, Gus Tomlin is Dead, which aired on March 25th, 1960 and was directed by William Bodine. In another great mystery-tinged episode, Elfego is asked to travel to the town of Granite to find a fugitive from justice named Gus Tomlin, guilty of a murder from 7 years ago. When Elfego hits town, he's told Gus Tomlin has been dead for 7 years. Elfego decides to leave, but his horse throws him after being spooked by a little boy named Ross, who is out chasing rabbits, played by the brother of Mouseketeer Kevin Moochie Corcoran, Brian Corcoran. Elfego meets the boy's father, Bill Minters, played by the skipper from Gilligan's Island himself, Alan Hale Jr. The family asks Elfego to stay in town, which doesn't sit well with the town folk, knowing he was looking for Gus Tomlin. Elfego discovers that Tomlin is not only still alive, but a local hero, having saved the town from a typhoid epidemic. And so the town's citizens are a little protective of him. Elfego learns that sometimes doing the right thing isn't always what's written in a law book. Elfego Baca is a series for anybody that loves a good Western. Though it should be said that with the exception of the first episode, it's not a series for those who prefer historical accuracy. The standoff in Frisco is done very well, and quite accurate to what is known about one of Elfego's greatest adventures. The rest of the series strays greatly from Elfego's real-life story, so while we may not get to see Elfego serving as a school superintendent or being brought in on charges allegedly masterminding the escape of Mexican General Jose Inez Salazar from jail, we instead get a folk hero more in line with Don Diego de la Vega than the real Elfego Baca. A show like Disney's Davy Crockett does a better job at being historically accurate with its subject matter, but I'm okay with that. I know I'm not going to get the Elfego that drank hard, loved wild women, and took no issue with killing people if his life was threatened, but what I got instead was a fast-paced, fun Western series with a great cast and great writing. He dared to stand up to the toughest of men. He faced all their six guns again and again. All the people in town and all the folks around sing the praise of Elfego Baca. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my look back on Elfego Baca. If you'd like to be kept up to date as to when I release a new video, go ahead, hit the subscribe button. And if you really want to be notified, hit that bell as well. I'm Brian, and I'll see you next time on Vintage Disney.